But over the course of months, and literally our meetings were like 9 hours. They were these marathon meetings. They were exhausting.
What would he talk about?
His motivations had changed. He was pro-Al-Qaeda. He had things happen in his life where his motivations changed. He saw the light. After September 11th, he was like, oh my God, what are we doing? He had family influence that was like, what are you doing? This is not okay.
This is a guy who, I'm just using an example you just gave, who, wanted stuff like Sharia law, and he's talking to an American woman case officer, probably not wearing a hijab.
Yes. No, wasn't. There was one point because it was like eating me up. Why? Like he talked to my friend was a dude. And I straight up asked him, why are you talking to me? I am a white Western woman. I am the antithesis of everything that you believe in. So I asked him, and he kind of just sat back and he kind of got this little smirk and went, why not?
Had you had any involvement or look through or anything in the years before you were in Afghanistan? Had you had any involvement in the Osama bin Laden investigation?
No.
How did you get involved?
Luck. So there was a walk, I think he was a walk-in actually, that a friend of mine had met with. I think he met with him once or twice. And I remember my friend was leaving. He was with a different unit, but he was DIA. And he said, this guy can talk. He talks so much. He talks so much. And I was like, yeah, all right, yeah, okay. And he's like, but he claims that he knows where Osama is. Like, I can't get anything out of him. Like, we just sit there for hours and I don't know what he's saying. Like, he's just talking. Okay. So I had the first meeting. First meeting, I was like, oh my God, this guy talks so much. Like, please stop talking.
Who do you say he was?
So with this story, some people have heard the story and they think I'm burning my source, but I change things.
Okay.
So he was very close with Osama. He had known him forever, like just, I don't know, they had been friends forever. He was kind of his right hand for a while. He knew about the attacks of September 11th before they happened, which, if you step back, the attacks on September 11th were pivotal for my career. I was actually, side note, I was working at Stanford University at the time, and I was driving to work, listening to the radio when the planes hit the towers, and I remember them breaking in and explaining, and I remember them saying bodies are falling out of the sky.
Yeah.
Right? Visceral memory.
1 mile away from here.
Right. When I got to work, I quit and I applied to grad school because I was angry at myself because I knew I wanted to do it and I was killing time. I wasn't actually fighting the good fight. I wasn't helping our country. And I was really angry at myself. Like it was a personal failure. So when he brought up September 11th, and we talked about it, and we talked about his history, we talked about everything. It was very difficult for me, especially initially. Like you're sitting across the table from someone who you hate, right? I hated everything that he stood for. I hated everything that he knew about. It was really, really difficult. But I'm not going to recruit someone if I hate them, right? You can tell when someone doesn't like you.
Oh, yeah.
And I was really frustrated because he did talk way too much. But over the course of months, and literally our meetings were like 9 hours. They were these marathon meetings. They were exhausting.
What would he talk about?
Oh my God. He just blathered on and on. He was okay. He was a very nice person. His motivations had changed, right? He was pro-Al-Qaeda. He had things happen in his life where his motivations changed. He saw the light. After September 11th, he was like, oh my God, what are we doing? He had family influence that was like, what are you doing? This is not okay. And he just kind of stepped back and realized, yeah, I might want Sharia, I might want all this stuff, but this is not the way to do it, okay? So it took me a long time to just see him as a person now, not as his past, and try to respect him and try to have empathy and try to empathize with him and his situation and be in his shoes in his life that day, if that makes sense.
This is a guy who, I'm just using the example
Yeah.
you just gave, who, wanted stuff like Sharia law, and he's talking to an American woman case officer, probably not wearing a hijab.
Yes. No, wasn't. Nope.
Interesting.
And we talked about that. There was one point because it was like eating me up. Why? Like he talked to my friend. My friend was a dude.
Yeah.
And I straight up asked him, why are you talking to me? I am a white Western woman. I am the antithesis of everything that you believe in. I straight up asked him. Yeah. And of course, there's an interpreter. So he would talk for 4 hours. The poor interpreter's like, wait, I need to.
No English.
No English. No. And my interpreter and him were from very different parts of the world. This comes in later.
Okay.
So I asked him, and he kind of just sat back. I'll do this. He just sat back, and he kind of got this little smirk and went, why not? And I was like, okay. Right? But we ended up building a really good rapport. Now, remember, I didn't have kids at the time. I had really wanted kids. He had 5,000 kids.
5,000?
He had a lot of kids. A lot of kids.
Like what kind of number are we actually talking?
I don't know. Probably in the dozens. He had a lot of kids.
He was busy.
He had a lot. Yeah, he was very
busy.
Poor
lady.
Yeah. Or ladies.
Ladies, yeah. Yeah. Doing that over there.
Yeah. He was probably exhausted. That's why he looked so tired all the time. Yeah. So it really, this operation pushed me outside of my comfort zone more than any other. Because I had worked with terrorists before, but this was different to me, right? And so I just spent a lot of time getting to know him, getting in his head, understanding the motivations, his vulnerabilities, his suitability, all of that. Just listening. He just wanted to be listened to in large. A lot of people, when you get them talking, they just want to talk, right? Yep. This is what you do for a living. So remember we had talked about money, and at the end of every meeting I had a little envelope, and I would slide the envelope over and thank you
Pay that to
so
your
much.
7,000 kids.
I know.
There you go. There's your child
support. Thank you so much. You're going to have to feed a lot of people. And he would always very graciously push it back and say, no, thank you. I don't want your money.
Oh.
And every time I was like, damn it, because I can't recruit him if he's not taking money.
Right, you were saying.
So I checked all the other boxes, but that. And it was killing me. It was killing me. And I was brainstorming with people, and we could not come up with a solution. I tried everything I could think of. And finally, it just hit me. So I had gone, side note, there's a world famous, evidently, maybe it's a Kabul famous palm reader. He's probably gone. He was very, very old. He's probably dead by now. He was very old. But one of my sources had taken me and a couple of people from my team to go meet this palm reader. And this palm reader, when I sit down, I give him my palm, and he has a ruler, and he's measuring, and he goes, you will have 12 kids. And I was like, what? We got to go. So that was kind of a running joke with my team and I. And I had told this guy about the palm reader and that I was going to have 12 kids. And we started bonding over kids, that I wanted kids and that he had a bunch. And I realized this guy is a religious scholar, right? Education is super important to him. Yeah. And he has all these kids. And so the next meeting, we did the meeting, and I had my envelope, and I started to slide it over, and I stopped. When he went to touch it to push it back, I kind of stopped him, and I was like, stop, don't touch it. And he looked at me, and I said, look, after this meeting, I want you to go down to the local bank, and I want you to open a bank account in your eldest son's name. Cultural thing, right? Open it in his name, and I want you to put this money in that bank account, but you are not allowed to touch it. This money is for your kids. And every time we meet, I'm going to give you money for your kids' college education. Oh. Not for you.
Oh, he took it.
He took it. And I recruited him the next meeting.
So when you say, this is where I get a little confused with the gray area, because you're having all these meetings with him. He's spilling for 9 hours. Maybe 3 of it is actually important. 6 of it is whatever.
Yes.
TMZ for Afghanistan.
Right.
But, isn't that, he
the
already
intel?
kind of is recruited.
So I can't task him if he's not recruited.
Okay.
So he knows where Osama is. I can't say, go take pictures.
Understood.
Or tell me the house number, or I can't task him.
What? Was it the first meeting that he told you, I know where he is?
No.
Do you
had
remember
kind
that
of
moment
danced
he
around.
did?
No. And, a lot of people say stuff like that, and you're like, all right, buddy. Yeah, me too.
Yeah. Is he in the room with us right now?
Right. So when people said stuff like that, you're like, okay, we'll figure that out. Yeah. So it's kind of like, we'll table that Sure. But he had to volunteer stuff. So it was like he had to know what I wanted to ask. So I could guide, here are the requirements. Sure. Do you know anything about this? No. Well, it'd be great if you did. I'm not tasking. But next time, if you do, that would be super helpful.
Yeah.
So, yeah, there's a fine balance. But there are benefits to being recruited, too. Plus, I could teach him tradecraft to protect himself from when he's sneaking around. That? Yeah. Oh. Yeah.
Okay. So you said you would dance around it and stuff. What months is this, by the way? Is this like January, February, March kind of deal?
Yeah, let me think back. Yeah. So 6 months. And I came home.
When did you get there? January 2011?
I want to say February. It might have been February or March when I left. When I got there. So yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're there when we get them on May 1. All right. So.
Yeah, I was there, and I just had meetings with him, where he was telling me, yeah, he's here. He's in Abbottabad.
When did he say Abbottabad for the first time? Do you remember?
Yeah, it was probably 3 or 4 meetings before they caught Osama.
How often were these meetings with him?
Weekly.
He just gets away for like 9 hours.
Yeah.
No one asks any questions.
Yeah, and I can't tell you why, but he had very good cover for doing it.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
And he didn't live there. He lived somewhere else.
So when you first realized, whatever meeting it was, how close he was in proximity to Osama, we hear that everyone's seen Zero Dark 30, which composites a lot of characters, to be honest. But there were different people working on this at all the different agencies, and then there were like 3 women, I think, who were at CIA, who had been all over it for years, who ended up, being there with the Navy SEALs and getting it done. But like, where did you take that information, and how much up the chain of command of that investigation did you get read in on? None.
So everything in Intel is very compartmentalized, which is very handy for your own brain. So nothing. Everyone just had the requirements, and anyone that got information, we would put it in our intelligence report and feed it into the ether and hope to God somebody who needed it read it. Really. So analysts would give you feedback. So analysts who are tracking, obviously they say Osama, like they're pulling in the reports that are relevant, but they would grade you. So they would say, okay, this report is a B. We don't really believe your source. Maybe could you ask him this and this? Or you get an A, and A was always really good. It's like literally like getting an A. You're like, yes, I got an A. It means it was good intel. They used it. Sometimes they would tell you where they used it. It went to the Presidential Daily Brief, things like that. But the problem was with this guy is that, and again, remember I told you biggest success and biggest failure at the same time. Because my interpreter and him were from totally different regions of the world, their language and their slang and their tone and their everything was different. So when this guy, I heard Abbottabad, I wrote down Abbottabad with quite like 3 question marks. Abbottabad. I had never heard of it before, right? My interpreter was like, I don't know what he's saying. And by the way, this guy mumbled. He was a big mumbler. He would talk forever and mumble, and you couldn't understand the mumbles a lot of times. He was like, he's mumbling again. I can't understand him. And I was like, but I heard Abbottabad. And we'd clarify, like we'd ask clarifying questions. We did map tracking. We asked for pictures, like everything you're supposed to do. But nobody believed us. They kept saying he was making it up. The feedback I got is he's making it up. And so I worked with NGA, National Geospatial Agency. We had an NSA person embedded. We took it to CIA. I shopped it around trying to get someone to like, is there an analyst that can give me questions for him that you want to know? Like, are we on the right track? And people, it was almost like half disbelief and then just miscommunication. We don't know what he's saying.
God,
it was crazy. So frustrating. And so I woke up one morning and turn on the news as I'm getting dressed, and there it is, like, we captured Osama bin Laden, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, in Abbottabad. He was in Abbottabad. Like, literally exactly how I'd spelled it in my notes. And I had a meeting with that guy. It was like a day or 2 later. And he came in and he was like ear to ear. He was like grinning. And he goes, we got him. See, I told you. And I was like, yes, you did. You did.
So you putting that report, even though you're not getting looked through and whatever, you putting in that report in maybe March, something like that. You're one of the people that then it zeroes in like, oh shit, we got this from multiple angles that he's there.
Yeah. So those analysts are compiling, and if they're having multiple source reporting, he's got to be there.
Yeah. So you're like one of the 4.
So I'm sure it contributed, but I got 0 feedback and 0. So in my head, I'm like, I failed. It wasn't me.
Well, it worked.
Whatever happened worked, and kudos to the teams that got him.
What was the? Again, I'm not going off Zero Dark 30. I'm trying to go off of some of the other stuff where I've seen people around it who were interviewed on it. Who was the guy that they got to? His courier, was that it?
The courier.
Yeah. What was that? What was the story there again? Do you remember that?
I think they arrested. Isn't he still in Gitmo?
Probably. But they were like tracking him, or they were able to follow him there.
They had to have multiple avenues to get this guy. So you're having multiple sources reporting. There was also the vaccination thing, if you heard about.
What was that?
Where they had somebody offering free vaccinations in the area
for the kids.
And they could test like DNA and stuff. Oh. There's all kinds of cool stuff. And then like my dude was like taking pictures of it. I mean, we had photos.
Oh, wait. Okay, hold on a minute. You sent him to Abbottabad?
No, he went. This is before he was recruited. He went.
And he took pictures? And he brought that into the meeting?
And he brought that in. He had pictures along the drive. He's like, and here's an overpass. Here's this tree. Turn right at the tree.
So you saw the building that he ended up, you had the whole thing?
I didn't have the house. I had pictures of the area and getting there. He was showing us where to go.
Was he like hidden camera kind of stuff, or
no,
was he
they're
straight
so
up
blatant.
like
blatant.
a tourist?
They all have those little like Nokia.
Yeah, so he's like, oh,
yeah,
just chilling like he's a tourist.
And yes, and there were pictures where he's standing, and someone took his picture, but he did it. He's like, oh, I had someone take my picture, or like
with this in the background, like, yeah, get a little to the left, please.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, can you see the building?
Whoa.
Yeah.
Now, was he meeting with Osama?
No. He had already had a falling out, so he wasn't tight with him anymore.
Are you able to say why they fell out?
Mm-mm.
Yeah, I kind of figured. But it's someone who knew him for a very long time.
Knew him very well for a very long time.
What did he say about Osama? Like what? Obviously, you said after 9/11, he was like, wait, this isn't the way.
Yeah.
But what did he say about him as a guy? Like, why were they, other than believing in maybe Sharia and stuff like that, like what made him so magnetic?
I never asked. But it was interesting talking to him because it was like someone he revered and respected, but also didn't agree with anymore. So you could see conflict, like internal conflict. I don't know how to describe it. But because of that conflict, I never went deep in that because I didn't want to upset him. Also, I was still very, very cautious, the male-female relationship. Right. And for him, especially being a religious scholar, like that's a big no-no, right? So I was really careful what I asked him and how I asked him things. I didn't ever want to offend him,
Wait, actually, I'm a little confused on that. I can understand, like, some of the personal questions and things like that because of the male-female relationship, but what makes a difference between you or a dude sitting in your seat asking a question about his relationship with Osama?
Yeah, I just didn't feel like it was right. For example, like, because he was a mullah, and I am not a Muslim, like, I gave him as a gift this beautiful, beautiful Quran. It had like hand-painted artwork in it and stuff like that. I couldn't touch it. So when we bought it, my interpreter bought it, we wrapped it up. And so when I gave it to him, I was like, this gift is for me, but I know I can't touch it as a non-believer or whatever. Yeah. So here, so-and-so is going to hand that to you. And he appreciated that. So there was just like religious and culturally, I just felt like I had to walk a really careful line.
Sure.
He might have been happy to give me intel, but that doesn't mean he was happy to like really let me get in on his head.
Thank you for watching the video, guys. If you haven't already subscribed, please smash that subscribe button and check out this clip's full podcast episode by clicking here or in the description below.